So today, Charles Gaston Couturier, who is one of the Forgestic consultants, is going to show us interactive analysis with SAP Business One and Excel. And for those who are on the SQL platform, you might just be interested in seeing what the HANA side can give to you. So I think you've already got the control, right, Charles? You all right?
Yes, I do.
All right, it's all yours.
I thought you were going to say, for those of you who are running SQL, I'll give you an opportunity. They'll give you an opportunity to see what you're missing. And
it's not for everybody, though, but it is very interesting, Charles. I'll give you that.
It's not to make anyone feel bad about their choice, but I think that one thing I think that we are going to be insisting today is that the SAP HANA system is rooted both in the past, present, and future. So for those of you who are still running Microsoft SQL, it's a very good database engine. The presentation today will allow you to have a better insight as to what are the differences between this new HANA in-memory engine and a more traditional view, which is still extremely useful and proven, that is Microsoft SQL Server, but we're kind of moving away from, slowly but surely, from a purely SQL related model. So we're going to be talking about a few important concepts, so that if you were asked to explain your child what SAP HANA is, you'll probably be able to at least give a good insight. I think that anything which can be understood by a child has been well explained, has been simplified enough, because anything can be simplified to become understandable. So we're gonna first clear two concepts out of the way. And the first concept is called OLTP, and the other concept is called OLAP. I prefer OLAP because it sounds like a first name, I think. OLTP stands for Online Transactional Processing. And the key characteristic of online transactional processing is that, try to imagine someone who is managing the data. I mean, we're running business system and database system are completely automated, but it's a little bit as if someone was serving or processing these data. Imagine someone who's constantly running left and right from drawer to trying to find a file. Well, if this person is looking for these files in an OLTP way, the person will go row by row, file by file within a drawer, so to speak, okay? And the other thing that can be mentioned about OLTP, you're going to be able to forget all that, but maybe someday you will hear back about this term and it'll ring a bell. OLTP is the favored, if not only language that Microsoft SQL Server can use, unless we add a more modern component to it. So as a summary, it processes data row by row, and therefore it is a bit slower when the volume accumulates. On the contrary, a non-line analytical processing, OLAP, our good old friend OLAP, will process the same data, but it will process columns in block, so to speak. So I know this one is a little harder to envision, of course, but it's as if this person looking for your files in the drawer could basically process one drawer at a time, the whole thing, without having to look for individual files. And so it allows for working from a multi-dimensional cubic perspective. So the term that you will often hear about OLAP, that is the modern way, the way of the future, although it's available today. It's a cube. So OLAP transaction or OLAP analytical processing is about making cubes, and we're gonna have an example of that a bit later. So we've also all heard about a new concept called big data. In French, it's mégadonnées. Sorry, I forgot to translate that one. That would translate to mega data, or big data is the term which is most often used. And essentially, the principle behind all that is that we have noticed, and I've been doing the job for 21 years now for Forgestic, and if one thing that never fails to surprise me, and I hope that you're going to be happy about that, is that the lifespan of a database ERP system is extremely long. It's much longer than we first thought. I wrote a program in 2001, just to give you an insight. I wrote a program in 2001. I was absolutely sure that it was just temporary. So I made something in the code that would not allow it to pass year 220. But guess what? It's still in use today. So I had to make a change, and right now I decided to modify the code so that it could last until year 3000, just in case. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if you remember back in the days when computing were still emerging science, we would think that a system's lifespan was about 5 years, right? But that's not the case. We realize that systems that you install may last for 20 years or more. And so parallel to that, more and more we have opportunities to gather detailed data, and so people want to log and process this data and consider it as a very precious asset. Again, those who have been in the business of ERP system for some time, maybe you remember back in the days, we had routines that would basically compress data and then flush data as if the present was very important. Maybe last year was important, but not the accumulation of, like lifetime data. But things are changing now. One very fair example as far as SAP is concerned, I think it's one of their biggest pride. One of the biggest big data users who also happens to be using SAP HANA, the system that we're presenting today, is Walmart. And last time I checked, my numbers could be wrong because it's been some time, but last time I checked, I think that they were posting about 250,000 transactions per day in an SAP HANA database. And obviously, these people are pretty good at what they do. That's because they don't let the data sitting there. They know what to reorder. They know how to manage the warehouses, etc., based on all this detailed logging of data, right? So I'm going to talk today about an example which is much more modest than Walmart. They are not in stock market yet, in fact. But the reason why I want to talk about them, first of all, is that because I got the permission, that's one thing, from the client itself. And the second reason is that this is a customer who really trusted that they should start designing the system with a big data mentality in mind. And it's called Safe and Fair Food Company. At Safe and Fair Food Company, they are currently quite early in the life of their SAP system. They've been running it for about 8 months now, and they are booking already 4,000 marketing documents per day. The entire chain is automated through a Shopify integration. We have a module of automated cash application because that's a lot of transactions to reconcile when you do your deposit. Of course, they don't want to do that manually. But the thing is that we don't get rid of any of this data. So we are logging and storing all the data in what we call a data warehouse, and I'm going to show you how it looks like later. Maybe not the whole thing, but at least you're going to have an insight. And we know that's very important, is that early into the implementation, we knew we would expect and we were ready to prepare to process volumes of transactions that would be in excess of millions of lines. I think that once they have like reaching like during the pandemic, it's not really a good example, but once they reach their full cruise speed, we are expecting anywhere around between 10,000 and 20,000 documents to be posted in the system per day. And yet, the query process time is always less than 5 seconds. And in fact, I would consider 5 seconds as being really bad, and you'll understand why later when we start working with the system. So in other words, when we work with interactive analysis, well, interactive analysis is an interactive concept. So the speed is the key. You don't want to have time to go and brew a new coffee every time you do a click, right? So that's how, or that's where systems such as SAP HANA come in very handy. So their data warehouse looks a bit like that. I know you probably can't read anything there because everything is so small, but essentially for every document, we store the document type. We mention if it's B2C, we mention if it's processable, that is, are there any mistakes in the document, etc., the source, document type, etc., whatever. Like, think about your system currently. You probably have, at least for some of you, a tons of UDF. We can include this UDF. They are managing the discounts in many ways. Sometimes it's an item that is representing the discount. Sometimes the discount is in the header of the document, but in the data warehouse, we are creating one kind of discount only for better consistency, etc. So that's the principle of having a no-lapse system. And again, this will become clearer later, which is based on stage data warehouse. So SAP HANA Interactive Analysis, we're going to start to do a quick visit, and it's not going to be highly technical, but it's going to be enough to give you an idea. First thing you might want to know is that the system, when you buy it and when you activate it, it ships with a few standard interactive analysis. Let's see if I can find them. So we are in SAP there. That's version 10, by the way. And you're probably familiar with this report subfolder. Well, under that, when you are running SAP HANA with the interactive analysis, you have other subfolders, which is called Excel report and interactive analysis. And from there, these are basically the default one. And opening one is just a matter of clicking on it. And then, as you can see, it opens an Excel spreadsheet, which is ready to process a pivot table data, basically. All right, so let's be frank. How many of you are using standard report as is in SAP? I mean, usually, based on experience, people tend to have a lot of IDs, great IDs, and quite early, usually, we feel the need to customize the data a little bit. So the existing models are there. You can navigate them, especially if you're already using SAP HANA and you didn't know that it was there. Well, now you know. You can play with them a little bit, start getting familiar. But let's face fact, chances are you might need to get a custom reporting object developed. Try to close this. All right. And so, sorry. Customization of such a project can inspire cooperative work. And the reason for that is very obvious, is that in your business, you can probably name more than one people who is an Excel freak. And Excel, quite honestly, I learned from my customers. You know, I've been doing that for quite some time. I'm doing cubic OLAP reporting since 2012 now. But never fails to amaze me to see how our clients are often way more competent than we are in interacting with Excel. So you can imagine that if we do a cube for you and then your best power users in Excel start to do all the reporting by themselves, well, that's less hours charged at 150 and more dollars per hour. I mean, that's your own staff. You can take all the time you need. And so this is basically how we can cooperate to make successful projects of business intelligence. So we're going to start by reviewing where everything is done in terms of customization. That is a cube. Okay, we are in SAP HANA. Let me just step back so that those that are more familiar with database system will probably recognize that that looks a little bit like Microsoft SQL Server interface, although the colors are different. But the thing is that these are all databases. This is SBO common for those who have had issue in the past with this database. It's there. That's the guilty. That's SBO demo CA. That's just a test environment. So all these are databases, and they work pretty much the same way as you might expect. There are tables in there, etc., etc. So this is basically the section that belongs to the past and the present. It's still a reality to work in this way, but HANA also has a second section, which to me is way more interesting, and it allows to create cubes. It allows to create OLAP data. And so let's have a look at the cube. We say of such a design, okay, and here. All right, I think it's clear for everyone. That's a table, right? That's just an abstract representation of what we call facts. Okay, that's why it's called facts here. So what are facts? In the OLAP world, in the new world, in the new reporting, business intelligence, big data world, facts are the most important pieces of information because they contain the financial, the quantity, and all that stuff, etc., data. So basically a project of designing a cube is about setting up facts table. And first, and in this case, the facts that we are going to report on are made of invoices and credits. That's not very original, but at least it's more understandable. So this is the fact table. Now, just make sure that we can see the whole thing. So this is the fact table, and now what we have all around these facts, we have branches. And that's the reason why this architecture there is called a star schema. Star schema, for those who like to Google in high tech or those who are geeks, you probably started hearing about that. The principle of a star schema, well, I'm going to show you by example what a star schema is by opening or accessing the cube that you just saw, which is still in design mode, but we're going to access it now from the Excel report and interactive analysis designer. So I'm clicking on it. It's going to open Excel. And now I'm going to log. I'm already logged in the system, but I'm going to launch a new interactive analysis and then pivot table. And I have access now to that universe there. You see? So from SBO demo CA, I have access to the whole universe, including the custom views or the custom cubes that we made. So what I'm actually selecting from here is the same cube that you saw earlier. So I'll click on it, shows me what I can do with it. I'm pretty satisfied with that. I'm gonna need to authenticate. Normally this authentication should be done automatically because any custom report that we do for you, we would rather implement it so that it becomes automatically accessible from the SAP interface, as you saw earlier with the budget analysis. All right, got it. So we talked about, and again, as a reminder, we talked about the fact tables. The facts, we can't miss them. As soon as I start running queries, you're going to see the facts. But what I want to bring your attention on first is the branches. Many of you have probably worked already with a pivot table system in Excel. Usually we will pull a lot of data in sheet one, then we make a pivot table based on the sheet one, and it creates a bunch of columns. And usually these columns are all like singular, like one. They are by their own. They're not regrouped, okay? And so if you have a lot of columns, it can be a little bit messy. By naming your columns, following a standard, it can help you find your columns, but that was then. This is now. So as you can see, all the branches that are part of this cube are displayed in a very clean format in Microsoft Excel. So earlier we saw that there were 4 branches to this cube. The first branch is a dimension table. All the branches are always called dimension, and a cube is made of many dimensions, essentially. All right, so that's why I call these entity dimension tables. These are customer attributes. What will you find in there? Well, anything which is related to customers. These are general ledger relevant accounts for our analysis. And in fact, why don't we begin by that? Because I suspect that there are finance people in the room. So I'm going to first start the analysis by pulling the revenue accounts, which are referred to by all the facts on which we are inquiring. And again, these facts are either sales invoice or sales credit. So in other words, what I'm explaining is that right now we have all the GL accounts that were affected by the sales at some point. Okay, that would be more useful if we could put some measures that we call that measures or values. Let's use values instead. So randomly, I'm going to pick, say, the revenue. I don't want the profit there. I'd rather have the cost there and then the profit there. So essentially, this is a very simple way of starting building a GL analysis. Now, what does interactive analysis means? Interactive analysis means that you can have any entity, any of the branches that you might add to a project, and you could have so many branches. Are you managing production? We could have a branch related to production. Would you like to know what's the relationship between what you buy and what you sell, for instance? Well, we could do that, right? We could. I didn't make the demo this way, but we could, for example, know of everything that we've sold, what was the cost and what was the supplier, etc., related to this. That's the interactive aspect of it. In the case of, for example, to name it, since we started defining this example, in the case of Safe and Fair Food Company, given the volume of transaction, they want to know, and they are like anyone else, sometimes they have a GL account that doesn't balance. They have questions about the GL account, it doesn't balance. Why is the sum of the sales would suggest that I have that amount in my GL account 411 and it's not really what I have? And basically in their case, it is the item groups and the customer groups which are affecting which GL account will be hit by a sale or by a credit. So you can click on item group and then all of a sudden you start to see the light. And if they can pinpoint an item group that shouldn't be associated with that that particular GL account, then what's the next question someone might ask, you think? I don't know. Maybe getting the document number could be a good thing, right? So now we have the document number that is associated with that. And I really want to insist there, think about your business system as it is right now. Think about all the information that's in the business system. Well, it can all be included in an interactive analysis. And what happens is that the more I work with clients that are creative in pulling that kind of information, the more they teach me how this can be used. They did fantastic stuff with their system, such as, for example, they have a bunch of tabs like that, which are corresponding to one period and entry that they need to book. For example, when you use the Shopify system, Shopify will invoice the client, at least that's their model. Shopify invoice the client before the goods get delivered. That is, when you make a purchase, you provide your credit card detail, Shopify will invoice the client, and then you get the deposit immediately. You get a reserve invoice immediately, but not the delivery. So the finance people among you know that when comes the end of the month, that's a bit problematic because the cost will be recognized only when the goods are shipped. So with an interactive system like that, I created a dimension. Like, I won't be able to show it to you today, but it is all the goods that are not shipped yet. Okay, so then they can create a tab which grants which generate essentially the period end entry, the reversible entry that they need to pass at the end of each month. And this is very reliable data because it makes an interaction, or it relies on an interaction between the auxiliary data. Remember that we're pulling data from sales document here. So this is all auxiliary data with general ledger data. And in this case, I went as far as implementing the real general ledger data that is as found in journal entry, and we can report on the balance between the auxiliary and the journal entry. So they don't waste much time finding discrepancy. That's the principle of interactive analysis. You try to build a system which is fast. You remember earlier I was mentioning why it's so important for us to certainly not go above 5 seconds of processing time. Well, could you imagine if every time that you click, you need to wait 30 seconds? I mean, that's not really interactive, right? So that's why when we plan for such a project early in the project, we make sure that we make choices that will hold a road like a Porsche mounted on 20-inch wheels for years and years. And our goal is really to stay about 2 to 3 seconds of production time, even when we have millions of records. That's basically what you can do with a OLAP approach. Now, I'm going to show you maybe a last feature, something which can't be done with the standard Excel pivot table. It can only be done through OLAP processing, and it's basically designing hierarchies. It sounds complex, but it is so simple. I'll show you. Back to our cube, we see here that I have hierarchies. I have defined 1, 2, 3, 4 hierarchy. We'll pick the most complex one. So what is a hierarchy? Essentially, it's basically telling the system, all right, when the user will click on that hierarchy, you will bring the country, the state, the group, the customer group, that is, the customer name, the item group, and the item name. And we want them in a hierarchical way. Sorry, I have a difficulty with this word. Hierarchical way. So what does it look like? We'll grab that complex one. As soon as I click on it, if you notice, the rows are already collapsed, you know, and I think that we can expand the entire field. Well, I'd rather click instead. So basically what it says here is that since we instructed that hierarchy to pull the data from country to state, then to, what was it? I think it was customer group, and then that's the customer, and then that's the item group, and then that's the actual item per se. So this looks like nothing, but quite honestly, when you start having a lot of data, if you don't have that feature, and the report, for instance, is based on documents, then automatically you get everything in a expanded way. You could end up with 500,000 records in your sheet, and unfortunately, it's not always easy to collapse them and manipulate them, as some of you know. So using a hierarchy is very practical for that, and building a hierarchy is so simple. It's really like you imagine. Here, we're going to change that one. That way you're going to know. So here I have the item name, and what are we going to add? Let's add the document number just for fun. Okay, so I added the document number to the tree product, which is the product full tree. These are the names that I gave. We're going to compile the cube successfully. We're going to refresh the data. Oh, he's a little bit upset because I made a modification. Remove this, and finally add our. Now we just added the thing that we made, the thing that we changed. The speed is still pretty much good, as you can see. And now we have all the document numbers that are related to every item. Okay, so I hope that through this simple demo, you could have at least a glimpse of how you can think your day-to-day or period end or any kind of data processing, having in mind that you don't want to sacrifice your accumulated data. We have to think about customer service, about just-in-time. And by the way, this is something I forgot to mention earlier, Tracy, for the French audience. I'm really sorry. But by the way, SAP is not ending there. For those of you who are really geeks, you probably know that you can go and log on to Google to learn to do artificial intelligence. So there are means of having an intelligent system doing some analysis. And basically, what that involves is that a neural network, and I know I'm going to sound science fiction there, but I just want to give you a glimpse of where we are going with all that. You could have someone building a neural network that will do a very thorough analysis of all the habits of the ins and out, you know, so that you could have, for instance, much tighter MRP recommendation. You see, and it is implemented in HANA. So HANA is already up to date, up to speed with the new technologies. And if today, maybe some of you have heard the expression OLAP programming or cubic programming for the first time, I doubt so, though. I doubt so. All of you have heard about big data. I am sure of that already. But the future, and it's in a few years, not in a few decades, is that you'll be able to implement artificial intelligence to get better MRP recommendation through the same sort of framework. So this was the goal right off the bat with SAP, delivering SAP HANA, and I hope that I gave you a better idea of all that's involved. All right, and so the challenge now is to learn to modify our habits. Unfortunately, we are all humans. We're all creatures of habits. We all tend to want what we had before exactly the same way, right? But I hope that I created a bit of a doubt, and that you will be able to maybe envision your future business intelligence projects with an open mind to these new technology.
Thanks a lot, Charles. That was really interesting. Look, does anybody have any questions? You've got the chat box there, or you can just unmute yourself if you have any questions for Charles while he's here. think everyone's. Oh, hang on a second here. I've got one. So, nope, that was great. Thanks, Charles. Thanks, Nick.
All
Does
right.
anybody else have any questions for Charles? If you
You
don't,
might not have questions, and that's not necessarily a bad sign. I am here at Forgestic. I arrived in 2000, and I don't intend to quit anytime soon. I've been doing SAP HANA since 2012, and should you ever have any question, I'll be easy to reach. Should you ever have any project to analyze, I'll be more than happy to join the venture with you.
absolutely. Well, thanks, everybody. Thanks, Charles. And I'm going to be putting this up on our YouTube page if anybody wants to revise it or share it with other colleagues. So, have a great weekend, everybody. And thanks again, Charles. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you,
everybody.
everyone.
Bye.
Yeah. Bye.